Let's see. I
It's telling me
totally
to log back in, but it's not actually letting me do it.
save. Done. Yep, I'm doing
Okay.
it.
I'm doing it on my end too, but you go ahead and
Yeah, so Death to Diets is Summer and I are friends in Vancouver here, and we have the same views on dieting and fat phobia. And so Death to Diets we're starting off as a six-part series, a limited series, streaming here on Fireside, which is the newfangled jangle app where all the young people are coming. And what we want to do is talk about the ridiculous diet stuff and fat phobia that we see in the world. And because it is the end of the year, I know this is the same for you, Summer. We have a lot of clients who were saying, oh my gosh, how do I deal with people, other humans, other human beings who are talking about diets, who are being fat phobic and all that type of stuff. And so our episode today is we are sharing tips on setting boundaries and how to respond to diet talk during the holiday season. So that's what we're talking about today. But just a quick overview of our stance on diets, like, because it's called Death to Diet. So are you ready to talk about that, Summer?
yeah, you know what? The simulcasting is just not, for some reason, it's not working for me. So I'm not going to just fiddle with it the whole time, but hopefully it worked out for you. And then I can
I think so. Yeah, it worked out for me.
Cool.
So, Summer, do we hate people who go on diets?
No, thank
Oh,
you. No, just some people, but we hate them for other reasons. No, because this is the thing is that like we've literally been conditioned to diet. Like from the moment we're kind of born into this world, we're sort of given this like life purpose of, you should be thinner and you should always be like pursuing behaviors that are going to make you thinner, aka dieting. And so like it's really, if someone's a dieter, that's, to me, it's just an innocent response to living in the culture that we live in, the fat phobic culture that we live in. So no, this is never, anything we ever talk about here is never to like shame any individual for participating in diet culture. It's really like the industry and the system of dieting and the culture of dieting and the fact that it upholds fat phobia and weight stigma. That's really what we're talking about and what we're against.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And on the other side of things is where diet cultures and diet come from. You mentioned it before, fat phobia. We both have the belief that fat people like me are really fucking cool and deserve the same access, rights, and acceptance as straight size folks. And a quick note on language is we use the word fat as a neutral descriptor of people who are in bigger bodies because we think there's nothing wrong with being fat. And for those who are not in bigger bodies, we would use the word straight size. So a little bit of language there if you're not familiar with that.
Yes, exactly. So I would be straight sized and you would be fat. And that's something that you self-identify as. So I would never go up to someone on the street and call them that unless they had told me that they self-identify that way.
Yeah. Can you imagine? Oh, hey, Fatty, how you doing? Like,
I'm saying it in a good way. No.
You're fabulous. Yeah. So
maybe not.
A little bit about us. I am a fat activist. I teach people how to understand weight stigma, aka fat phobia, and how to love and accept their bodies. I have a TEDx talk, best-selling book. I'm super good looking and sexy and very humble. So that's a little bit about me. Tell us, Summer, a little bit about you.
Yeah, so I've been doing this work for like 8 years, which is a little scary, but I'm a professionally trained life coach, but I specialize in specifically helping people around body image and self-worth and confidence. And I host a podcast called Eat the Rules, and I also have a best-selling book, and I'm also really gorgeous, and so that's why we're friends, really. Yeah.
We have to be like super sexually attractive. That's where my friends, I'm like, Are they super sexually attractive? Because that's the only reason that I want to be friends with someone.
And be seen in public, right? Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And that's how we actually met. Is I saw you. I can't believe it's 8 years because I've been doing my thing for 7 years, and I feel like you've been doing it for like a zillion years longer than I have. But anyway,
well, I was like towing the line for a while before that, and I think it was like I've been doing like 100% body image for 8 years, but prior to that, I was doing some like helping people heal their relationship with food and stuff.
Okay. I get it. And that's how we met. Is because I was like creeping you online, and I saw your website, and I was like, oh my god, who is this person? And I reached out to you, expecting you to be like, go away, I'm not interested. And I said, oh, can we be friends and let's go for dinner? And you said, all right.
Yeah, we went on a date. Didn't we go see Lindy West? Was that the first date?
That was the first time.
Yeah.
Oh, what an amazing first date. We went to eat food, and then we saw Lindy West.
Yeah.
I mean, hello. Amazing.
It was good. And I feel as though within the first minute you made some sort of dick joke, and I was like, okay, like this girl's really cool. I feel like we'll be friends. Oh, sorry, not at the time you identified as.
At the time I was a girl. You're absolutely right.
So
and now you're like, this human is really cool. Oh my god.
Yeah. Yes. Sorry.
Well, that's a little bit about us, but let's give a boring fact, because obviously we just sound so good. We need to bring it down a little bit and give a boring fact about you, Summer.
Well, I saw what yours was, and then I basically copied you. So my boring fact is that in order to fall asleep at night, I need a body pillow, a fan, a white noise machine, an eye mask, and a pitch black room. And if I don't have those things, I won't be able to fall asleep. So when I travel, I have to travel with all of those things, or know that they're available to me on the other end.
Hang on, what is a full body pillow? Is it like a big teddy bear that you hug?
It's a pillow that's the length of my body. It's probably about 4.5 feet long.
What? And you hug it?
Yes. Yeah. If I don't, I get really bad like cramps in my hips and my back and stuff. So it sort of like keeps I'm a side sleeper, so it keeps my spine in an alignment.
Oh.
And when I was a child, like I started sleeping with a large stuffed animal, which then became like a butthead pillow. So I was really into Beavis and Butthead when I was like 12 or 13. Uh-huh. And so I ended up like acquiring this big like butthead pillow. This is so weird. I used to travel with it everywhere. I used to like take it on airplanes up until I was like 18 or 19. And then finally, when I matured a bit, I upgraded to an actual body pillow instead of using butthead.
There we go. I think you need to bring butthead back.
It's probably got some diseases on it. What about you? What's your boring fact?
My boring fact is that I sleep on the left side of the bed, and Dougal, my dog, sleeps on the right side of the bed. And I don't think I could fall asleep without having Dougal there, because I give him a little cuddle. And if I ever get a romantic partner, I don't know what the fuck is going to happen, because Dougal will be like, get the fuck out of here. So that is my boring fact. Very important to know what side of the bed we sleep on. But I'm not as I don't have as much requirements. But I'm liking this body pillow thing. It sounds fun. I can maybe pretend that I've got a boyfriend.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like you get to control everything, so they can't make you feel bad.
This is what's happened: is you 100% humped your what is it, butthead thing when you were a teenager. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
It's not actually true, but
it's not true. You didn't do that.
No.
Okay, you weren't like me, because I was humping fucking everything.
Oh no, that wasn't really my jam.
Oh. I'm just like, Sam, I definitely was
a little bit of projecting there.
Yeah. So, anyway, should we get into the meat and potatoes of the show today, which is talking about end of year holiday stuff? But listen, even no matter when you listen to this, if you're tuning in right today or any other day of the year, this stuff is relevant 365 days a year, because we have to deal with this bullshit all the time.
Yeah. I also just want to say before, if people are listening to this if the people who are actually here, there's a little, like, you'll see a little tab in the bottom right that says react. So if you touch that, and then it allows you to send a reaction. Like if you send in an applause or any other kind of reaction, you can do that. If you, yes, 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 yes.
Thanks.
Thank you, Jen.
Oh.
Yes. And then if they want to speak, I don't know what they do.
Well, there's a little button in the right left-hand corner with the dashes that probably says something like.
Bottom left probably says like request
Left
to
is
be on
it.
stage or something.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's the user overview. So, okay, do you want to get into it? Do you want to give the question that I got in?
Yes. Wow. So someone wrote in, given a question, asking a question. I was like, what is that word? Asking a question. They said, I've been on my intuitive eating journey for over a year now, and my relationship with food is so much better. My mum has always been a chronic dieter, and recently she's been doing keto. I really want her to understand my journey and know what intuitive eating is about, but she doesn't seem interested. How can I get her to understand? Also, I'm worried about her diet talk over the holidays. So, Summer, how would you answer that question?
Yeah. Okay. So I relate to this a lot personally, and I think that a lot of other people do. I feel like dieting is generally passed down from generation to generation. Like the majority of people that I work with learned it from one parental figure, most often their mother. And a lot of the people I work with, that mother is still dieting at like 70 or 80 years old, or however old they are, right? Because it's a lifetime membership. And so I think that like we've kind of opened ourselves up to this new world. We've discovered this new way of being, and we're like it's so much better to not diet, you know, like I just can eat the things I want to eat, and there's no guilt or shame. And we want to tell people about it. And we want other people to feel this way too, but not everybody's there. And I think that sometimes when it comes to stuff like this, we can't push our beliefs on anyone else unless they're ready and wanting to learn. And so I think as it relates to your mom, I would say maybe have a conversation about, this is what I'm doing. It's really working for me. Do you want to learn more? Like, are you interested in learning more? And if the answer is yes, then like what might be the most helpful for you? Like a book or a podcast or an article, like something that takes 2 minutes to read, or something that's going to take you, 2 weeks because it's a pretty in-depth book. So that's like the best case scenario. I wouldn't expect that though. I think that if they're not open, if they're not willing, because it sounds like your mom's really entrenched in her way of thinking, which again is not her fault, like just innocent response to sort of the cultural demands that are put on us. I think that there might be a bit of, even letting go on your part, like having to let go of this idea that you can change her mind, or having to let go of this idea that like, she's going to totally support you, which can suck, I think, but letting go of this idea that we can change people can also be really healing, because it can help us just focus on our own process and our own journey. And one of the ways I like to really position this is to just know that we all have different value systems. Like we all hold different values. And so instead of thinking like, my mom doesn't get me, or there's something wrong with me, try to reframe it in your mind as we have different value sets. Like my mom values something different than me at this point in time, because values are the things we value can always change. And I think that if you can frame it up that way to yourself, it helps a little, it makes it a little bit easier to honor each other. And I'm not saying you have to support her. I probably wouldn't support her. I would just be like, you do you, whatever makes you happy, mom. But I think that if you can position it as like, we hold different values, it makes that letting go process easier. And then as it relates to the diet talk, I think that when that type of stuff, it depends on your comfort level. Are you comfortable saying something in advance? Because that's kind of the ideal situation, is to have a conversation with your mom or send an email in advance and say, I'm on this journey, something really kind, like I'm on this journey now. I'm really focusing on myself and my health, and I'm not focused on weight loss or dieting anymore, because I found that to be really damaging to my overall well-being. Would you be willing to support me in this journey? And if they say yes, then say, I would love it if when we're together, we don't talk about dieting or bodies or food. And that's kind of like the ideal situation, right? But not everyone's going to get buy into that. And I think it depends on your comfort level. Like, are you comfortable having that type of conversation? Are you comfortable like opening yourself up? And I think something to take away there is to make it about you and how they can support you, versus like you're doing something wrong by dieting, because that's never going to be helpful. Rather, it's just like, you're my mom. You hopefully want to support me. Here's something that I'd love you to do in order to do that. And so that's kind of like the best case scenario. And then there's always the worst case scenario, which is they don't do that. And then you have to think about, well, how am I going to respond in the moment? Am I going to change the subject? Am I going to hold the boundary firm? Am I going to leave the room? And that's completely dependent on the individual situation and what you feel comfortable with. And I think, Victoria, you're probably going to speak a little bit more about that when you talk about your technique later.
Yeah. And what I wanted to say about what you were saying is major, like, oh my gosh, when I first discovered health at every size and intuitive eating, it was like I'd seen the light, and I just knew, quote unquote, knew everyone was desperate to hear this information. And I presumed that I could just walk up to anyone and be like, did you know you can be fat and healthy? Did you know that diets don't work? And that everyone would be like, oh my God, thank you, Victoria, for sharing this information. Now I'm going to never diet again. And that didn't happen. And I was like preaching to everyone saying, oh my God, this is going to change your life. You're never going to want to diet again, and you're going to realize that your body is cool. And I soon learned that people were not at the same place. And it's kind of like a unique set of circumstances that mean that you're able to hear that information and internalize it and make changes in your life. And if I had heard that information maybe a year earlier, I might have been like, what the fuck is this bullshit? Of course you can't be fat and healthy. And so although I would love to force everyone just to believe the same things that I believe and have the same morals or values as I do, I can't make it happen no matter how much I try, Summer. It's very rude of people to not just listen to me and conform to the way that I want them to be.
Yeah. Well, I think like, especially when it's like your family member, you sort of internalize it as like, it's hard to let that go. Like, it's hard to like realize that maybe you won't get that buy-in and support that you would really love from, the parental figure in your life. And, I don't know, there can be like sadness about it. At the same time, I think when you surrender that, it makes it a lot easier to just be able to go through and have empathy for them and be like, okay, well, I'm on my own path and I'm doing this for me, and this is the best thing for me.
Yeah, and that's a big thing. Is a lot of times I see people saying, before when I was dieting, I was so stupid. I was such an idiot. All I ever spoke about was diets and la la la. And I'm like, oh no, have some empathy for yourself, because of course you were dieting, because hello, it'd be weird if you weren't a dieter in this world. And then, exactly what you said, extending that to, your mum or whoever, but also knowing that it's really fucked up that this is happening, it's not okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I run into a similar situation, and I've written a book on this, and my mom still has her own way of thinking about things. And I've just had to accept that that's the way it is. And like, she's probably going to go to her grave feeling the way she feels. And
wow, really?
what can I do, And I think all I can do is like try to support her. Like, if she makes a comment about her own body, all I can do is say something like, I love you no matter how you look, Mom. Like, I think you're beautiful, whatever size you are. And that's the only thing that, like, that's the best I've accepted that that's the best I can do. And I think that gets through to her more than being like, Mom, diets don't work. Like, all this other stuff like that's just not going to register.
Yeah. Whereas with my mum was very, same. But she is now totally on board with everything. And I think it was just over the years seeing how this stuff affected me positively that she's just being like, oh my God, yes. And it's so cool to see, because I was kind of, assumed that wouldn't happen. And I probably was all like, "Ma, don't say that," and at the beginning, but eventually she just kind of got it, and so I'm lucky.
Yeah.
Lucky me.
Yeah, that is good. That is lucky. Do you want me to read the question that you got?
Yes, please, Summer. Read my question, please.
Okay, so the question is, I have put on weight since the pandemic, and this year will be my first time I am seeing people for 2 years, since I've seen people in 2 years over the holidays. To say my family are into dieting and working out is an understatement, so I know I'm going to get judgmental looks. My mom also likes to make little comments, and if I say anything, she complains I am too sensitive. What should I do?
Oh my gosh, yes. I wish that we could see like audience faces. If you can, give a reaction, a clap, or whatever, if you two are feeling nervous about seeing people post-pandemic because your body might have changed. Because I think that, I think that even if your body hasn't changed, seeing people again is really difficult. It's almost like we've got used to not and seeing people virtually and all that type of stuff. And so I think that you're not alone in this. And if we were in a room of humans, everyone would be saying, yes, me too. I'm nervous about seeing people. I'm feeling a little bit stressed. And if your body has changed, I mean, it's just entrenched in our culture to see someone and be making judgments about how they look. Like in my family, I think it's just an Irish thing, but whenever I see my aunts, or I have like 75,000 aunts, I have 65 cousins and 14 aunts. And so anyway, so there's lots of family.
Wow.
And yeah. You know that Irish Catholics love
it.
Yeah. So the thing that people say, it might just be an Irish turn of phrase, but when they see you, the very first thing is, you look well. And it's not even you look thin or you look whatever. It's just, you look well. And in that moment, it's kind of like a little, like, have you judged the way that I look? And they might not have. They might have. They have seen me, so yes, they've probably judged the way that I've looked. And in my life, I've gone from being a smaller size, still fat, but to being a larger fat person, and having to go back to Ireland to see family after I had put on weight. I was like, it's really difficult. So one, it's normal to feel like this way, especially during the pandemic. And two, you're not alone. And when your mum says you're being sensitive, my opinion is that you're not overreacting or being too sensitive or demanding. It's a very reasonable request to not have to experience bigotry around your body. Like, you're not asking for too much there. If your mum is kind of like making those underhand comments. Did you ever have to deal with underhand comments, Summer?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
I never did. Well, I did actually. I'm like, well, no, I did.
Like, I don't know if they were underhand. They were more direct. Like,
yeah.
They were more direct. They're more like, bully type comments, but also just, I mean, that could be a whole other show. So open a tin of family secrets, but let's just say that. Yes.
Oh my gosh. So I have a kind of method of dealing with fat phobia, a formula, and there's three words that I remember, and the first word is to remove. the second word is to reduce, and the third word is to protect. And so can you remove the source of this issue, the source of fat phobia? And so say if the source of your fat phobic thoughts coming up was a TV show, you can remove that from your life by not watching it. If it's a person, you can end the relationship. Or another way to remove is to set a boundary. And so that's kind of like the gold standard. If you can't do that, there's many different reasons why we can't do that, and we'll talk about this in just a moment. The next thing that you can do is reduce. And so reduce the amount of exposure to that person, to that situation. And so if you are going to spend time with your family, can you, instead of spending 2 weeks there, can you spend 1 week and 6 days, or 1 week, or just a few days, or just a few hours? Can you, if that's not a possibility, can you sit further away from them at the dinner table so you can't quite hear all of the diet talk coming your way? So what ways can you reduce your exposure to that fat phobia? And finally, if you can't reduce, because sometimes that's not possible either, what can you do to protect yourself? So protecting your mental health. And so that's going to look like a lot of self-care, maybe listening to either our podcasts on the way to your driving to your family's house, being like, yes, I am a badass, and no, I don't deserve this bullshit. Or listening to a podcast while you're at dinner and tuning out about, la, 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 it's cool to be fat. Whatever it is you need to do to protect your mental health. So gold standard is remove, next reduce, and third is to protect. And I would do exactly what you said, Summer, is what can we do beforehand? Can we send a message to your mum and say, listen, this is what I'm doing. My script is so similar to yours, and mine is, I'm wondering if you can help me with something. Just going in, I'm wondering if you can help me with something. And that's the same as your approach, which is not about you. It's not that you're a raging bigot and fatphobe and diet culture nightmare, which maybe they are, but it's about me and my journey to love and accept myself, my journey to unlearn fat phobia and diet culture. And I've noticed that something that's triggering is when people talk about food or bodies, or exactly what you said, Summer. Can we avoid that while I'm around? Who knows what they're going to say, but by the way, every single time I've set a boundary, apart from one time, the person has said, yeah, cool, of course. Apart from one time. Is that the same with you, Summer? Have you had good experiences with setting boundaries?
I've seen it. I mean, for me, yeah, it's been fine. I think sometimes you have to kind of like reinforce it, because people are like, oh, I'm not supposed to talk about that, or something, you know what I mean? And then you have to be like, no, really, like... But with clients, I've seen it kind of go either way. So I think it really depends. Like, I've seen for some people it's been like really successful, and for others, like they've had to really kind of distance themselves from certain people in their life because they just haven't honored that boundary. And that's really hard. And yet that's probably the best thing for their mental health.
Mm-hmm. It is so hot. Oh my God, this stuff is so fucking hard. Why do we have to try and be an emotionally intelligent human beings? Why do we have to like communicate and shit like that? Why can't other people just read our brains, read our minds, know what we're thinking, and just not be dicks,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I wanted to share the fierce fatty jab technique. So we all know the steps on how to set a boundary and maintain that boundary. Would you like to hear that, Summer?
I would. I've been waiting for it.
Okay, so the jab technique, not another acronym. I love a bit of I love my acronyms, but I didn't just give you one, but I have lots of other ones. But anyway, this is the jab technique. So I'm just going to tell you what the words are. So J, judge, A, action, B, brace, and B, bottom line. So we've got a double B there. So first off, judge. So we're going to judge the situation. We're going to assess to see if it's safe to set a boundary, because often there can be situations where it's not safe to set a boundary, where maybe it's not appropriate to set a boundary for many different reasons. So, for example, you've got a complete bell end boss who is really cruel and mean and whatever. It might not be in your best interest to, kick down their door and be like, listen up here, motherfucker, this is the way it's going to go. Because, they are not safe, you might get fired. There's a power imbalance there. Can you think of any other times where there might be a power difference? Summer, that
I think it's like comfort too. Like, is this someone that, like, do you feel? I like to kind of differentiate between, like, is this outside of your comfort zone or is this unsafe? Because if it's like unsafe, then don't do it.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, obviously setting boundaries is always going to be outside of your comfort zone. So I think you also have to understand the balance in terms of, like, is it worth, because there's always discomfort. Is that discomfort worth it in this particular moment? Or is it better for me to just, like, put on my metaphorical earplugs and leave the room? You know what I mean? So I think it's like, to sort of just, like, tag along with what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I've got a real life example of that. One time I was at this Christmas party, and this girl, we were playing this card game, Cards Against Humanity. Remember that?
Yes.
So we were playing Cards Against Humanity, and this girl, one of the cards said bitch slap. And I said, what does bitch slap mean? And she jumped out of her chair, straddled me, and slapped me across the face. And I was like, what the fuck? And I said, do not ever touch me again. Left the party, and everyone was like, oh my God, what is that person doing? And anyway, I left the party. Everyone was like, oh God, Victoria, you handled that really well. A couple of weeks later, I saw them, her and her partner, and I was with my partner. We bumped into them on the street, and there was no kind of escaping. Like, they were right there. And she pretended nothing happened. Oh my God, someone, and we were just like, see you later. And as we were walking away, she turned around and slapped my bum. And we were like, I didn't know the girl. Like, she wasn't a friend or anything. It was just someone at a party. And then she did the same thing again. And so in that moment, I remember being like, shall I be like, remember here, listen, I told you don't ever, put your hands on me ever again, or shall I just keep walking? And I decided in that moment, it was best for my mental health to just keep walking.
Yeah.
And so, in the first instance, I did set a boundary and have a natural reaction of, if someone hits you in the face. But then the second time, it wasn't worth my while, or it wouldn't have helped me in any way, because I wasn't going to have a relationship with this person anyway.
Yeah. Oh my God. What? Like,
I know, isn't it wild? I was like, what is happening in this world? Yes. So that's the first step, is judge. And then the next step is action. And so you're going to have to set the boundary. And so there's many different ways to set a boundary. It could be face to face. It could be over text. It could be, sending a pigeon, whatever. But actually setting the boundary. What other ways would you, have you heard about people setting boundaries apart from saying, hey, can you help me with something? Are there any other ways that you can think of?
I think sometimes having, like, an ally there too, like if it's like, if it's like a coworker or, like another family member or your partner to like help reaffirm it, or be the communicator, like be the one to say it, that's all. That could also be helpful in that circumstance. I think like one of the helpful reframes I find around this too is just, like, boundaries are, and this was something I learned from another coach named Victoria Albino, but she was like, boundaries are really a gift to the other person, because you're saying, like, this is what I need from you, or this is like, and I see that, like, it's like, if you like, if I misgendered you, I would want you to be like, hey, Summer, like, don't, can you not do that? And then I would be like, oh yeah, sorry. Like, thank you for telling me. Do you know what I mean? And so I think it's like that. Like, I think if we can reframe it as, like, it's actually a gift to the other person, instead of like, I don't want to hurt their feelings,
Yeah. And that's actually when I was on Christy Harrison's podcast, that was the one line that she pulled out from what I said, that boundaries are a gift, because they are such a gift. And I used to be such a bad friend, because I'd have friends that would do shit, and I would be so annoyed with this stuff that they're doing. I would never mention it to them, and then behind their back, I'd be like, "Did you know so and so did this?" And people would say, "Oh, how about telling them?" I'm like, well, "Never going to do that." You know, what's wrong with you? Why would you think I would communicate with them? And it made it so people could never get close to me, because if they pissed me off, I would just be tight-lipped and be like, "Everything's fine. Don't worry about it." Because I was so terrified that they would have a negative reaction, that they would be like, flip a table and be like, "How dare you ask me to take my shoes off in your house? You're so unreasonable," you know?
Oh,
But
I've got a good one. I just put this as an example. I
yeah.
know we have to hurry this along, but real quick, when I used to work in a corporate job, there was this guy in the cubicle next to me, and he used to just burp. Like he would take these like really loud sips. He'd be like, and then be like, "Ugh," like, just like all day, and I
No.
would just sit there like just like ready to explode, like fuming at this. But we were not in the same department at all. I did not even know this person's name. They were like a temp worker that had kind of been placed on the other side of my cubicle. So I went to my boss. I was like, "You need to do something about this." And then he had to go to the other guy's boss, and then the boss came and like had to talk with him, and I could hear it because I was on the other side of the cubicle.
Oh my gosh.
But then he stopped.
Well, there we go. It's a Christmas miracle. Amazing. And so, what would you have done that differently now?
I don't know. I tend to really be passive aggressive in like a not a great way. I'm trying to work on that because I think I remember like kicking the cubicle every time he did it, or I would like make some noise. Like it was very passive aggressive. So no, because and honestly, because I think of the dynamic that I didn't know him, and it was a man, and like
Yeah.
I felt it was better dealt with through third parties.
Yeah. And that's perfect, because that worked for you. He stopped burping. And that's the thing, is sometimes the passive aggressive kicking the cubicle, he's probably like, "What's wrong with this fucking other person kicking the cubicle every time I have a drink?" You know, it didn't work.
Yeah,
Didn't work.
no.
Okay, so the next letter, so it's JABB. So we're on the first B, which is brace, which is brace for them to forget about the boundary. For them to be like, "Oh, you hear about this new diet where you put cucumbers up your bum?" They're probably going to forget about this new boundary. And so we need to get ready to reinforce a boundary. That's where it gets really difficult, is sometimes doing the first kind of, "Hey, can you not?" That having to do it the second time can be really, really difficult. Our next B is bottom line. So once you've braced and reinforced that boundary, if they do it again, we need to decide what we want to do. So what is our bottom line? Is how they're reacting okay with you? Are you going to change your boundary? Are you going to remove yourself from the situation? Lots of different things can happen from reinforcing the bottom line. What ways do you think that we could reinforce the bottom line?
I think like limiting the amount of time that you spend with them, or saying like, okay, well, I'm thinking a lot of people have issues with like their like their mother-in-laws and stuff like that. So if they have kids, and so just saying like, "Okay, we'll come over just for an hour," or we're only going to see you once a week instead of 3 times a week. And that kind of thing. And I think the other thing that you can say sometimes that helps really hit the point home is like, when you say X, like when you make comments about food or my body, it makes me feel really ashamed. And I don't want you, I'm not going to accept that you're making me feel that way. I think if you can sometimes I don't think people realize the emotional impact it has on you. So I think if you can articulate that in a way that says like, it makes me really ashamed, it makes me feel really ashamed, or it makes me feel really humiliated, or whatever the word is you want to use, then that might help actually drive home that point to the other person. That's kind of like the last ditch effort that I usually kind of give to people
Yeah. Yeah.
before having to, separate, like spend less time.
Yeah, yeah, love it. That's really good. That word is so powerful because most people, if they're empathetic, will be like, "Oh God, I feel
Yeah, because
bad
I think
about."
sometimes people don't realize, they're like, oh no, I'm just, it's just diet, like whatever. But if you, it's having a big. I just realized we're matching like their shirts.
I just realised that, Summer, and I was thinking, like, "Wow, look at us, we're both of our green." And I wasn't wearing green earlier. Were you wearing green earlier?
No, no.
We both changed our outfit into something green.
Yeah, cool.
Green Christmas.
All right.
Yeah.
Anything
So
else? We got to like wrap it up.
I know because you have to go and do stuff because you've got a fabulous life, whereas I'm just going to sit in my chair and cry.
Do you want to go pick up my son? Do you want to do that? And then you can take him and I'll sit and cry instead.
I'll sit in my chair and cry. It's okay. So where can people follow you, Summer?
Yeah, so you can follow me at Summer Innanen across every platform. If you can't spell that, you can just go to thebodyimagecoach.com and that will take you to my website. I have a free 10-day body confidence makeover that you can download there. So if you just go to thebodyimagecoach.com, you'll see it there on the homepage. And my podcast is called Eat the Rules. What about you, Victoria?
Well, people can follow me at fiercefatty.com. My podcast is Fierce Fatty. My book is Fierce Fatty. My social is Fierce Fatty. My non-existent children, one is called Fierce, the other one's Fatty. And you can get my body love roadmap. Just go to Fierce Fatty. It's right, the first thing that's on there, fiercefatty.com. So thank you, everybody, for hanging out with us today for this experiment of using this new app. I hope you enjoyed our time together. Any final words, Summer?
Thank you. Just thank you for being here. We'll be back in January with another episode where we've got some good stuff to rant about there.
Oh my God. We've got such good stuff to rant about. Like, ooh, unbelievable. Anyway. Okay. Well, have a wonderful rest of your day, everyone. Enjoy picking up your child, Summer.
I will. And it's actually sunny out, so we get to walk.
Ooh, fancy.